David R. Guttery is the president of Keystone Financial Group in Trussville, Alabama. David Guttery and Seth EDGIL are financial advisors who represent Emeritus Investment Company, LLC, and Emeritus Advisory Services. Please stay tuned through the end of the video for additional important disclosure information.
Hello everyone, I'm joined today by Seth EDGIL of Keystone Financial Group in Trussville for a discussion about thoughtful planning around saving for a financial goal. Seth, thanks so much for joining us today. The last time we spoke about budgeting and savings, which is in the same wheelhouse as what you want to discuss today. So how is planning towards a savings goal different than budgeting and saving?
Well, I wouldn't say that thoughtful planning around saving is different than budgeting and saving. I would say the planning portion of saving is the most important subsect of the budgeting conversation. While budgeting gives us the free cash amount that is available to be saved, the planning around where the money will accumulate is of paramount importance.
When you are discussing where money will be saved, are you talking about stocks versus cash versus bonds?
Yes, planning would involve determining an appropriate asset mix, but it would also involve choosing the correct saving mechanism and appropriate account registration. To better explain my point, let's look at what my family saved for me as a starter nest egg. When I was born in 1992, my grandparents bought Series EE savings bonds from the U.S. Treasury. For those unfamiliar with EE savings bonds, according to treasury.gov, they are bonds that earn interest compounded semi-annually for up to 30 years. The bonds are guaranteed to double after 20 years, and they can be purchased in increments as small as $25 face amounts, up to $10,000. From 1992 to 1996, my grandparents began investing into savings bonds on my behalf. During that time period, they invested roughly $3,000, and today those investments are worth just north of $9,000 before taxes. While I'm internally grateful to have people on my side preparing my future for me, I can't help but wonder what was the intent of the investment. I recently asked my grandmother, matter-of-factly, when you set this money aside for me, what did you envision I would use it for at full maturity 30 years later? She stated, well, I thought it would be important for you to have, as a young adult, to have funds to start a nest egg. I professionally agree with her intent to invest. Some of the best ways to begin building generational wealth is to start early in investing for children. However, if she were sitting down with me as a hypothetical client, I would begin asking more questions about the intent. Questions such as, how long do you expect it to be before the child is to gain access to the funds? What do you want the child to use the money for in the future? Is it important for you to have the rate of return guaranteed? How do you want this investment to be treated from a tax standpoint? Using the example of my grandparents, I might have recommended different investments. Series EE savings bonds are great because they pay a guaranteed rate and are considered a risk-free investment. However, due to the fact that they are essentially risk-free, the rate of return is lower than other risk-bearing assets. If the same amount had been invested in the S&P 500 in 1992 through 1996, it would have a value of over $110,000. We know past performance is not indicative of future results. However, looking at price performance of the S&P 500 index, we can observe that there's never been a 20-year period of time that the index has lost value. Since the S&P 500 is generally considered by the financial industry as a placeholder for the investment performance of stocks, imagine the size of that investment if a portion of it had been placed in risk-bearing assets. So if I were able to go back in time as the hypothetical advisor, I would have learned the intent of the investment. That would have led me to make other recommendations about asset allocation and account type. In this instance, a lack of information and poor planning led to a considerable hypothetical loss.
Wow, that's a dramatic difference in account value. I can see those small decisions around planning led to large differences in potential outcomes. Is there a magic bullet, so to speak, for the best account type and asset mix to save for a long-term goal? Well, to use your story, for example, is there a best way to save funds for a minor?
Unfortunately, there's not a perfect one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to financial planning. When saving for a minor, there are a myriad of decisions, like I mentioned earlier, that need to be made in order to deliver the best solution. Custodial accounts like a UTMA, 529 plans, cash value life insurance, CDs, savings bonds are a few of the many options when it comes to saving for a child. The main question that must be answered is, what is the purpose of this investment? Once that is determined, options will begin to narrow until you eventually land on the investment type that best suits the need. From there, you can determine what the asset mix should be. Fortunately, this planning process works for saving towards any financial goal, whether that be retirement, buying a home, or any other financial event. However, I have seen in my personal life as well as my professional life, the wrong decisions in the planning stage will lead you to a totally different place. To use another analogy, imagine taking a boat from the east coast of the United States to England. Before you set sail, the captain says he is not going to use a map, he's not going to navigate by the stars or chart a course. He knows England is east, so he's going to head east. The chances of that boat docking in England are slim to none. The boat may end up in Portugal, Morocco, France, Norway, or somewhere else many miles from the intended target. That is like saving without a plan. The journey across the Atlantic requires great effort, like saving, but without a navigation plan, the end result might be miles away from the intended destination.
I'm noticing a theme from our conversations. When approaching any sort of financial question or problem, the most important step is the planning step. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. That is the main reason I joined Keystone Financial Group in March of 2023. Philosophically, I always believed that true fiduciary financial advice can only be obtained through a holistic planning process. Keystone Financial Group, as a firm, is fully committed to the mission of holistic financial planning. Every client we work with develops a financial plan with us. Personally, I care about this mission due to my own experiences. If my grandparents had received financial advice around their savings goal, they might have made different decisions. When I asked my grandmother, "Why did you choose savings bonds as the investment vehicle?" she told me, "That's all we need to do." I say all this to say we live in a rapidly changing world, and that this is not the same environment in which your parents or grandparents learned to save money.
Well, that is very insightful. It certainly is a different world, from ease of access to information to the activities of our daily lives. It makes sense that investing has also evolved over time. So what can our viewer do in order to chart out their own financial plan?
My recommendation is to work with a fiduciary financial planner and develop that financial plan. Whether you are planning for your holistic financial portfolio or just one financial goal, professional advice will help you ask and answer the questions you didn't realize were pertinent. This advice will change how you think about the goal. It will map out a path to that goal. Viewers may always reach out to us in order to plan to achieve the goals in mind. Without a plan, achieving a goal is only possible with luck. With a plan, achieving that goal is an attainable future checkpoint along your journey. Investments will continue to evolve, and thus so will your plan. Working with someone that puts your interests above their own is crucial.
Well, Seth, as always, thanks so much for joining us. And for additional information, Seth may be reached through the means listed upon the following screen. For the Trustful Tribune, I'm Brannon Dawkins.
David Guttery and Seth EDGIL independently offer securities and investment advisory services through Emeritus Investment Company, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC, and Emeritus Advisory Services. Information provided in today's segments is gathered from sources believed to be reliable. However, its accuracy cannot be guaranteed and should not be interpreted as tax or legal advice. Any performance stated is past performance and is not indicative of future results.